You can look around at this museum, which is the result of black people studying the Civil War. I look out and see so many of you here tonight very interested in the Civil War. So I'm not blaming my editors as so many people do. I wrote that headline very much, was very proud of it at the time, and thought I had stumbled upon a genius pun, only to realize later that I actually was simplifying the story, which is often the case with headlines. And I say that to say because the fact of the matter is this. As a young person, I had a long-standing interest in history that easily stretched back to why, as far as I can remember, my father is here tonight, and he was always a huge part of that. He ran a small press in Baltimore that specialized, for the most part, in history, so it was very natural for me to be attracted to history. And so it was with some embarrassment that I essentially stumbled across the Civil War. I would go so far as to say only 4 or 5 years ago. Obviously, I knew that there had been a Civil War. Obviously, I was very aware of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, but it's one thing to know that it happened, and it's a whole other thing to realize the significance of the Civil War. The Civil War is, in fact, the font of modern America, that when you talk about women's suffrage, when you talk about the Civil Rights Movement, when you talk about, as we're talking about today, gay marriage, this expansion of the democracy in America, that you really can't have any of that without the Civil War. And you can't have the Civil War, you certainly can't have a Union victory in the Civil War without the participation of African Americans. And so for me to miss something so obvious, like that, I was educated up here at Howard University, I had read big, thick history books. How can I have, missed something like that? And so you come to a place like this and you realize that people have, in fact, been on the Civil War for some time, and you're very coming to that. So immediately after that, what I did, I have a young son and a wife. I packed everybody into a rental car, and from time to time we dragged them into Virginia. I dragged myself down into Tennessee to see the battle parks. They went along with it, not always willingly, but they did. I have the pictures to prove it. But wherever I went, it was the same thing. It was quite obvious to me, just looking at the number of visitors, or the color of the visitors who were at these battle parks, that I wasn't the only person who had skipped over the Civil War in my understanding of what had happened. And so when I went to the article, that was a constant vexing question for me. Why, when I went to a battle park, was I the only, and my family, were we the only African Americans there? I interviewed a gentleman at Gettysburg, which has recently been rehabbed since then. And one of the first things they said to me, the park ranger who was doing the tour for me, he said, before you came, I sat in the visitor center and just watched for a second to count the number of visitors and what race they were. And we were the first African Americans that he had seen that day. Should I pause for an introduction? Do you want to?
Yeah, okay, that's good. And one thing we want to do